agriculture, increasingly in Africa, is a private sector operation. Governments have gone out of the business of running state farms, state input companies, state marketing organizations, and handed it over to the private sector. And it is very difficult to say, how do you finance the private sector? We could say that yes, the budget allocations to the agriculture sector are 3 to 4% of the budget, but I beg to differ. It is what is given to the Ministry of Agriculture. And when you look at the support that goes to the agriculture sector, you'll find that all of us easily surpass the Maputo Declaration of 15% of the budget to agriculture. When you count the money that the governments put in rural roads, rural electrification, irrigation, support to farmer groups, skills enhancement for agriculture, and mobilization of credit for agriculture. All that should be counted as support to the agriculture sector. Not to the ministry, but to the agriculture sector. Having given that a defense, I would just like to bring up a few issues. And if His Excellency will humor me for a few more minutes, a few issues that we in finance want to put forward to agriculture. And I must say I am blessed by being Minister not just for finance, but the Minister for Economic Development. So I can't get away from myself. When the Minister of Economic Development wants to do a project, the Minister of Finance has to find the money. So I've got used to wearing two hats. And the issues in agriculture we see as two main categories. One is the skills, the farming methods, the ICT, the provision of inputs, the demonstration, extension workers. We have newly found the importance of extension workers, and we're all very hard working at that. The other main category is credit, affordable credit for agriculture and agribusiness. But we shouldn't just say lack of credit. We should say lack of credit for viable agricultural operations. Because we must begin to see agriculture not as food subsistence, a man with a hoe or a woman with a hoe. We must try to see it as agribusiness at all levels. We have heard here how we want to pull subsistence farmers out of subsistence, to make every farmer a small businessman or businesswoman who happens to be employed in the agriculture sector. But this needs a holistic approach. Not just for Ministry of Finance releasing more money into the sector. That is not the answer. If that was the answer, I'd ask you to look at the reason and answer the question, why do we have defaults? For those farmers or agri-practitioners who do access credit, why do we have a high rate of defaults? Because we need a holistic approach. Not just Ministry of Finance handing money into the agriculture sector, but the Ministry of Finance working together with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Livestock, the Ministry of Economic Development, if it's a separate ministry, the Ministry of Education, the ministry responsible for trade and industry, for roads, for power. We need a holistic approach. Because it is true that agriculture is the mainstay of the economy. It's 66% of employment and above, 25 to 30% of GDP, if I may echo Honorable Felix. But, at least in Uganda, and I'm sure in most of the other African countries, it's less than 1% of tax revenues. Why is that? Because agriculture has been allowed to stay as an informal sector, as a charity case. All the poor farmers, give them free inputs. The next year, the poor farmers, give them free inputs. What happens to the previous inputs? We have to come together and work together in a holistic manner. Governments have tried to support the agriculture at the expense of tax revenues. in Uganda, Kenya, and I'm sure many of the other countries, we've had extensive systems of tax exemptions for agriculture. Why hasn't agriculture picked up? We've had tax exemptions for inputs, tax exemptions for outputs, no tax on exports, machinery comes in tax-free. Why isn't it picking up? And by the way, you better add that foregone revenue to again the money that the government's put in the agriculture sector. We need to examine how to encourage the informal sector to become part of the formal sector. And I think what we're discussing today is the way to go, the value chain approach. Look at the whole value chain, examine the issues in each part of that value chain, what are the obstacles, and we must make sure we answer them all together. The farmers must be seen as producers. We hear of PPPs, public-private partnerships. I picked up another expression, and I guess for copyright reasons I must say I picked up at IFAD. It's PPPP, public-private producer partnerships. We must look on the farmers as producers and not subsistence farmers. We must see them as a source of tax revenues, of growth, not as cash transfers. Because agribusiness is not food subsistence. We must begin to encourage more farmers to move out of food subsistence. What the Millennium Development Goals would say, help them move out of the vulnerable poor, or those people who are no longer poor but in danger of tipping back, and use the holistic approach. Let us break down the silos. Government, private sector, NGOs, CSOs, let us all work together and make sure that agriculture becomes not just the mainstay of employment, but the mainstay of production, of GDP, of tax revenues. Thank you very much.